All right. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Beast Report. I am your host, Scott Biskobing. And before I introduce tonight's co-host, just a couple little areas of business I want to touch on here. And one of which is, if you guys haven't checked them out yet, it's not too late to go to the huntingbeaststore.com and pick up some of the new Hunting Beast hats, the Blaze Orange. We have the stocking hat, as well as the Inferno ball cap as well. So you can find those at the huntingbeaststore.com. Check them out. And also, as a reminder, we are on Spotify. The Hunting Beast Report, or the Beast Report, is the way you'll find it on Spotify. Look it up. If you put in Hunting Beast, you'll find it that way as well. We are up to date on all shows. You can watch the show live here with us on Tuesday nights, and by noon Central Time on, if not earlier, on Wednesdays, the show will be up on Spotify. So if it's something you want to pop an earbud in while you're at work or out and about on a walk or driving, and you don't want to watch it on YouTube, you can always check us out on Spotify. But if you do, please make sure you subscribe and share it with your friends. Let your friends know where you can find the Beast Report. With that said, let's go ahead and bring the man on himself, Mr. Dan Infault. He's got the Inferno hat. He's rocking it tonight. What's up, Dan?
What's going on?
I'm excited. It's that time of year. I mean, we kind of go through phases, right? You know, it's archery season, and then we're getting into the firearms season here. And I know for some of you that's already going on. Minnesota. It's already Michigan, and here in Wisconsin, where Dan and I are at, that starts this Saturday, and it's a really special time of year for a lot of us.
We're actually late this year. Usually it's going on this time right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. Based on Facebook memories, things are popping up, and I'm like, oh, I should be up there already. But yeah, we're going to get into a little bit more of that, but what have you got any cameras out yet, Dan?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are they looking like for you?
Pretty much zero.
Yeah.
I get I think I got 2 deer in the last 3 days, and they're both big bucks. So there's a couple big ones still moving around, but they were both nighttime. And like I said, this year I was doing an experiment. I always do experiments. I try to learn from cameras. So I put the cameras right in doe bedding areas this year. Wanted to see what goes on in doe bedding areas. And it seems like there's still bucks checking on the doe bedding areas, but it's getting a lot less and less. And it's pretty much coming to an end here.
For this round of the rut, right? I mean, we should expect some of the same early December.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, for any does that weren't impregnated during that time period that are coming back into estrus again, should get the bucks moving again. So possibly on the later end of the Wisconsin firearms season,
yeah, actually,
start to see some activity again.
Generally, the way the rut works is that the second rut seems to be about 30 days after the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And rut varies from area to area. I know in my area, that last week of October is really good, which means that we should get a small peak the last week of December, like a re-peak, you know?
Or the last week in November, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's possible at the end of December again, too. Again,
it does happen, you know, and you see some of those late fawns still got spots right when the season starts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're like, what the heck? Deer comes by the size of a cat. It happens every now and then.
Right. Well, we have one up by us that it's hilarious how tiny this fawn is. In September, it still had full on, like, straight up spots, like as if it was June or July. I mean, that's all small. I haven't personally seen it myself, but my buddy who hunts on another end of the property sees it a little bit more often, and he just ran into it about a week and a half ago. And he saw something brown going through, and he's like, "What? That's got to be a coyote." And he's kind of getting ready, thinking it's a coyote. And here comes this little fawn. I mean, it's no bigger, hardly bigger than a coyote, or maybe a big coyote at that. But I think there's something to be said about that. That maybe um, we might have too many does on our property. That some of them, just aren't getting bred in that first season. In
Well,
November.
maybe not. It can also have to do with age class of deer.
Well, sure, sure.
Um, the fawns breed later. You know,
Hmm. Right. I mean, its mother could have been a fawn from last year as well. Is what you're saying?
yeah.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
the actual fawns will sometimes come into heat,
right.
and they'll come into heat like a month later than the does.
Sure. So let's say you had a fawn that dropped in April, and maybe December it comes into its first round of estrus. Now that's going to push that fawn off a little bit further as well, and I think that's kind of where you start this perpetual cycle here of seeing fawns dropping later and later.
Right, too
So,
many does will have a variety of that. You get a longer rut season. You'll get
mhm,
more, but you won't get as much chasing because they'll just go sit at the doe bedding areas.
sure.
They'll have for breeding wise, you'll see more at the very beginning and the very end when the first ones come in, and there's only a few
Yeah.
in heat more action in that kind of scenario.
I think that's what I'm seeing by me, with the fact that there are so many does and the buck to doe ratio is probably off. I mean, I know for a fact it's off, and that's going to inhibit the chase cycle, of what you're going to see necessarily, because you're not having, because certain bucks are just, they know there's a plethora of does. With that being said, then you also are going to have does that didn't get bred in that first cycle. They maybe came in and out of estrus, and now they're not coming in again until December, but just because there were so many other does that the bucks had to choose from. I mean, is that a possibility?
I guess. Yeah.
Well, it's just a theory, anyways.
It
So,
just seems to me if they go in heat, they get bred.
yeah, you think
You'd
so?
have to have a pretty out of whack number from not to. I think
Yeah. What would you think that ratio would look like?
pretty bad, like 100 to 1.
Yeah,
I think a buck will breed does like you wouldn't believe if
yeah,
they're
that's true.
where it can. I guess maybe you're right to a degree because what I noticed like on camera, if watching on camera and like I said, I experiment with the cameras.
Hmm.
You see that when a doe goes in the heat, you see all these bucks come in, right, and gather around like all these young bucks, and then all of a sudden the big boy will come in, maybe a couple big boys, depending on how many you have, and they'll kind of disperse the little ones and stuff, and they'll lock in with that doe.
Hmm.
They'll be there with her for like either 2 or 3 days. That's what the cameras are showing. If I put the cameras in doe bedding areas, because the bucks are going to the does, and they're going into those bedding areas, breeding them, and then moving on to the next doe. And as those does would come into heat in those doe bedding areas, I would see that buck would come in there, kick away those little bucks that are just chasing around doing nothing. And he'd lock on her and chase the other ones away, stay with her 2 to 3 days. If you saw one on camera, like in that doe bedding area, if you wanted to kill that deer, you needed to get in there fast. It wasn't like, oh, next weekend I need to go in there. You needed to get in there fast.
Sure.
And you had to determine what period of time you're seeing that buck in. Because he's going to breed her a couple times. I think they stay with her, a little bit of time, but it might only be 2 days. So when you see it, it might be the next day, and then he's
Hmm.
done. The doe's done, and it's on to the next one. Which is, I don't know. I found that interesting. Just there was a window there where you could see the activity and get in there, and you could see the activity coming.
Yeah.
You could see the small bucks and then the bigger bucks. But my point was that he's going to be locked up for 2 days. So if another doe's in heat and he's the only buck, he's not breeding the other one. He's breeding this one, right? He's with her.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I would think there's other bucks around to go breed the other one too. I mean, it's not that big of a window. But if it gets too out of whack, I don't think they can run around from doe to doe to doe that are in heat. And maybe they do recycle. I don't know if they stay in heat. I don't know.
I mean, I've
That's
heard different thought. There's different schools of thought, obviously. And one of the schools of thought that, in fact, I think I just saw something recently, to be honest with you, that after a buck breeds a doe, he's already, his mind is switched and he's already thinking about the next one. I'm 48 years old. I need a little recovery time. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It comes with age. Do you think that there is a day of respite for a buck, or do you really think like they just instantly are thinking about the next one?
Next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, especially when we're talking about an age class of, maybe 2.5, 3.5-year-old bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what would we equate that to in humans? Like some 20-year-olds, some 20-somethings in that? Like maybe the older bucks might take a minute to recover. But that's also, I mean, when you think about how much mass they lose in terms of weight and how run down they get, it's just because it's a frenzy. It's breed as much as you possibly can in that window of time. I mean, again, that's the other school of thought. I
I
don't know
think
which one.
actually, I think probably the 2 or 3 year olds probably do the majority of the breeding.
Yeah, I would agree. And for a lot of guys, they're going to be like, well, what does that mean in terms of antler growth in that offspring? But I think what
I don't think anything none of that has to do with antler growth. The antler growth, the only thing that's going to affect the antler growth and breeding is how late the doe breeds. So if it's like a fawn that breeds,
yeah,
that buck fawn will be behind,
sure,
and his first year he'll have small antlers, probably even his second year. So that small 2 year old, that doesn't necessarily mean that thing doesn't have the genetics to blow up.
hmm
What it means is he's just behind and he has to catch up. But by the time they start getting into 3 or 4, probably into that 4 year range, they start catching back up and they start growing big, the big rack that they were destined to grow. Which is why the biologists and stuff tell you that shooting spikes doesn't work, because that can just be you be shooting all the fawns from the does, or
hmm
from the doe fawns that had fawns, right? You'd be
right.
shooting those spikes, which isn't doing you any good because those are just deer that haven't caught up yet. They're a little behind, a month or two behind. And they gotta
Yeah.
takes them a while to develop a rack if they're born late.
Well, I think we also know too that does are responsible for majority of the genetics that are passed on in terms of what their antlers are going to end up looking like in terms of those genes. And I think that for many years, when we can talk about cull bucks,
Mm-hmm.
that I think there was a lot of hunters that believe, well, we got to take that buck out of the breeding cycle because he's going to continue to produce those type of antlers in his offspring. And that would obviously have been the case with Slickback. For those of you guys that watched last week's show, but I'll just quick pull up a picture here of what Slickback looked like. We know him to be at least 6.5 years old, possibly older. Well, I don't see any other bucks in that 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5-year-old age range that has antlers like this, and he has no known injuries of any sort, and nothing visible, anyways. I mean, certainly, but he's looked this way his entire life. So, again, that just kind of reinforces that theory. I guess it's not even a theory. I mean, it's biology the studies have shown that the does carry that genetic more so than the bucks do. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you
So
believe
I think
me or
I've heard a lot of biologists say you can't really cull it's not effective, but
sure, right?
I do think that there probably is a little to it. I think that whenever somebody gives you an opinion like that, it's because they want to have an opinion. You know what I mean? I think there's a little bit to it. So if a buck has bad genetics, I mean, him breeding isn't good for your herd. Do you save a lot for your herd if you're trying to grow big racks by going way out of your way to kill those bucks? I don't know. I don't know if you make a big difference, and that's what I think biologists are getting at. But to say there's no difference, I don't know about that. I wouldn't say it's all does. I would say it's 50-50. I mean,
No, I wouldn't say all does.
a guy with dark hair like me, I got a blonde haired wife. We got blonde kid, and we got a kid that's got dark hair.
Mm-hmm.
I would think I had something to do with that. Her whole family was blonde their whole lives.
Yeah.
I mean, to say that I have nothing to do with the kid, is ridiculous. And to say that buck has nothing to do with the genetics of his offspring is ridiculous.
Well, I don't think the theory is that it doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just that it's more about the antler of the type of rack it's going to end up growing
Well, I think they
versus.
both. I mean, the doe can hold genetics for 10 points, and the buck can hold genetics for eights. But the combination of them is
So we
what's
should
going
get
to.
have a 9.
Yeah, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're saying it. I'm saying some biologists really push that it's all doe, and some of them push that culling a buck makes no difference. I do think it makes a difference. Now, with that said, I'm not a big fan of culling. I would rather see
Right.
every buck get to the best it can be, and I think every unique rack, like the buck you shot, isn't a great buck.
Right.
I'm a fan of age. I like to see older bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily just bigger. You know what I mean? I
Mm-hmm.
like everybody loves a giant rack, but for the most part, I like to see a variety. I like to see, the you ever see those like old bucks that are like 10 points and they got these baseball bat size diameter, beams, and their tines are only like 2 inches, but they're short and stubby.
Yeah.
God, I love that rack. So for me, that's just awesome. To look at something like that and think, oh,
Yeah.
look at that big old monarch. And you wonder what he was when he was younger or whatever. I could care less about score,
Right.
honestly. The uniqueness of the rack, the uniqueness of the animal, the uniqueness of the hunt is what I care about.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
I
definitely.
don't get that from shooting younger bucks usually. I get that from older bucks, which is why I hunt that way. And I think a lot of people mistake me for a trophy hunter. Like I'm trying to grow the giant 200-inch rack or something like that. And I'm just not necessarily trying to do that. I'm just trying to take a great specimen. You find a cool buck, you see one you want, you go after it. You,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think score is stupid. At least the way they do it. If you take a 150-inch perfect 10 pointer and you add a 10-inch drop tine on one side, that buck doesn't get smaller, but score makes it smaller.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
That's I'm taking the one with the drop tine. I don't care what it scores.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's just me. And everybody's different. But
I think it is for a lot of guys, to be honest. I mean, they want to see a big rack, cool rack, something unique, something with character to it.
a lot of guys will just add the 10 inches on a drop tine
Yeah.
and give you a gross score because that's a little more accurate of what you're
Right. Or a
looking at.
rough score. Yeah.
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 Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I think I've mostly done rough scoring on most of my deer in that. If I even have ever even attempted it once or twice. Like it's just I'm not really interested.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously if I shoot something huge, sure, why then yeah, well, maybe I'd get it scored or whatever.
The only time I would
But
worry about a score is if it affected the value of the deer.
sure.
You shoot one big enough that it's going to be worth $500,000 or 100,000 to some collector,
Hmm.
then I'm concerned about the score. Otherwise, I'd give a crap. Because if somebody offered to buy one of my bucks, I'd sell it in a heartbeat for that kind of money. Give me a replica. I'll have the plastic antlers.
Right.
You can have it for 100K. You
Right.
know, shouldn't say that too loud. Maybe I'll get one someday, and then they'll be like, "You said 100K? Ah, yeah, we can get it out of this guy."
I jump on that in a heartbeat. I'm gonna pull up a question here we have from Donnie Carroll. He said, Dan, our gun season in Kentucky is over on Sunday. How should I hunt really pressured bucks with a bow, and what should I do to get in range, given there's a nice buck around?
I think the big thing would be to take a look at the property you're hunting where this big buck is around,
Yeah.
and say, where did all the gun hunters go? Where were they? Where did they put pressure on? How did they hunt? What did they go through? Where did they go? And that buck is going to have a niche that he's learned over his life of where these people don't go. And that's going to be his hiding grounds. Um, And that ground should have the type of terrain a deer needs, and it should have the food he needs, but it should be something that's overlooked by the majority of the people. And there can be several reasons for that. It can be so remote that people don't get back there, which seems to be rare nowadays. Or it can be the stuff that's just overlooked because of how it's positioned on a property. Nobody wants to believe that those deer live next to the road, or behind the farm, or right next to something that doesn't seem huntable, like a parking lot or something. Um, and another thing is that they tend to like in recent years are going more towards areas that have no trees, areas that are just like thick and nasty, but a guy can't really hunt it because ground level is too thick to shoot. Um, Elevated, there's nothing to elevate into. And I just find ways to hunt that, and that gets me on them. But I'm looking for the places where the Orange Army doesn't go. And that's where you're going to find that buck. And you have to really, like the one thing that's really helped me is to just look at that property and think, okay, I'm that deer. All those guys that were out there in orange before I bow hunted now, they were all trying to kill me. Where would I hide? Where would I go? Where in here would I go and not get shot? And if you give the deer that intelligence, you'll probably find the spot. Now, a deer doesn't have that intelligence. They can't think like you, but what they can do is they can smell where people have been. And they smell where all those hunters were throughout the gun season. And they know that. And it's the same every year. And they've got that figured out. And they go to the areas where they don't smell people. And those just happen to be the areas I just described. And if you could think of it like that, you can really eliminate a lot of ground. And what I will do is I will take a property and I'll pick it apart. And I will constantly be thinking about my next move. Okay, if he's not here, where am I going next? Before I'm even going in there, I'm going in there to hunt it. I got it figured out. I'm already thinking about that next move. Where's the next most likely spot the spear is going to be? And I hunt the property down. I go and I hunt sections and I make sure that I clear it. Okay, he's not in here. Almost like a soldier would. You're going in there and you're clearing it. Enemy's not here. Okay, I gave this a good wallop. He's not here. He could be in this little patch over here. I move over there. He's not there. Where's the next most likely spot? And I'm always thinking about that. It's always going through my head. When I was younger, I used to dream about it, wake up at night and write notes down, and get up in the morning and read the notes and remember what I dreamt and go out and hunt this stuff because it would be on my mind so much.
Yeah.
And that's part of that want thing. If a guy wants it bad enough, he'll make it happen. But what it really is you're thinking about it so much, you come up with these plays and stuff and how to do things. And your average guy, I think, just thinks about, well, I should probably look for some scrapes and rubs. I should probably check this ridge out. And they just go there and they keep going there. Or they find sign and they keep returning to it. There's good sign here. There's good sign here. If the deer's not there when you're hunting, it's not where he's at. Maybe he comes through and makes some sign. And some of those spots can be revisited. Maybe he comes through every now and then. But don't dwell on sitting on that spot. You got to go to that deer. Those big bucks, especially when they're pressured, especially when they got a little bit of, they went through a week of gun season or something, are not going to move very far in daylight. They'll move, but very little. And that window might be 50 or 100 yards that they move. The more pressured, the less they're going to move, but they'll move. But they're going to be very leery about moving outside of that safe zone circle that they live in. And you got to creep right to the edge of that and get in there. So you got to get within like 75 yards of that buck's bed. And you're not going to do that by just sitting ridges and sitting scrape lines and stuff. You're going to do that by thinking about where is he, how thick is it, how can I creep in there, sneak in there and get really close without bumping him and get set up. And you got to just keep moving and moving and moving. And every now and then, you're going to blow that thing out if you're doing it right. All of a sudden, he's going to jump up and take off. And you're going to curse yourself and curse me and everybody else. But if you're not pushing that to the limit where you're every now and then bumping them, you're not getting close enough because you got to get inside that window.
That's great stuff. It's funny. I mean, just to go slightly off topic, I've had a couple people comment, not necessarily tonight, but just in general, that I always kind of have this smirk on my face when you kind of go off on these tangents. and your explanations and getting into great detail. And for as many times as I've heard this stuff from well before I even hosted the show, just being a follower and a friend of yours, and that I just can't get enough because there's always something that you have to add that I didn't hear before. I mean, some of the stuff you're just saying, but it's just that thought process where like I dreamt about it and I woke up and I wrote it down because it's that much on your mind. That just brings a smile to my face. I mean, that's next level. I mean, that is next level. Like you said, the average hunter isn't thinking about those kinds of things. With that said, we have some other questions here I want to jump into, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about the firearms season. But we do have a series of questions. And guys, to make it easier for me, if you could, because I'm trying to concentrate on everything that's going on while producing the show at the same time. If you do have a question, start it out, put question marks in the beginning of your question. And I know it's a question. I don't have to read through it and just assume it's a comment that you're chatting with people in the chat. So, but with that, Matt says, Dan, what's your go-to? Let's just have some fun setup. What's your go-to? I'm burnt out and just want to go wild kind of hunt. I don't know if you do that, but if that is the case, Dan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Geez, I can't put myself in that scenario. I am always chasing big bucks. Big bucks are always on my mind. There is no burnout. There's none of that. I'm always after them. Now, I would say that when I was younger, and probably where this guy's at, I did get burned out. Because there's a point where you all of a sudden you want to do something with your life in hunting, right? And you really want to show everybody that you're something. You go out and you start pounding it, right? And you pound for 30 days straight when that wasn't your MO before that. And all of a sudden you go 30 days without seeing a deer. And a lot of times when you go beast style, you start jumping into stuff. Okay, there's no trees here. I think he's living here. And you do what I was just talking about before. A lot of times you're dead wrong. And you get in there and you got to set up anyways because you think he could be here. I got to check this out. You see nothing. Well, your friends are going hunting food sources like acorns or clover fields and cornfields and stuff, and they're seeing 10 deer. And you're seeing nothing. And you're like, oh, yeah, the great hunter is out seeing nothing. And it's working on your mind and burning you out and stuff. But you got to look at the end goal. You know, I see far less deer than a lot of people that hunt around me. Now, you guys all think I'm some great hunter. I see all these deer. I don't see a lot of deer. But I tell you what, like 1 out of 4 is a shooter because of the way I'm hunting. You know, so I'm seeing way more shooters when I do see one. So you gotta just believe in the system and not get burnt out. But for me, for a fun hunt, it's off season. I guess a fun hunt for me is going on a bear hunt. That's but even that, I'm serious about it. You know,
Right.
But an off season hunt, if I was gonna like deer season's not in, you know, gonna go blast some pheasants or something or some wild hogs. I'd love to, you know, if anybody has a hog problem on some place down south or something wants me to come down, I'd love to do that and actually shoot some wild ones. That's fun, but I'm not doing that during deer season. During deer season, I'm super focused. I really maybe a little too much for some people. You know, you hear a lot of people say, Dan, when do you shoot does? What time of the year do you shoot your does? I don't doe hunt. I buck hunt. Now, I'm not saying shooting does is bad, and I'm not saying I don't shoot does, but I don't hunt them. What I do is I hunt bucks, and if it's a scenario where it's the end of the night and I'm not coming back, and a doe comes in, that's when I shoot my doe.
Sure.
When I'm gun hunting and we're doing drives, and the buck doesn't come out and some does do, or a doe comes out before the buck, I might take a doe and wait for the buck.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not. You know, I used to shoot a lot of does during early season, and I can't tell you how many times I've shot a doe and looked up and there's a buck and I blew it. There was one fairly recently that some of you might remember because it's been recent enough. It's still a long time ago, but at Dave's farm, after Dave died, like the year after, I was hunting there and I had some activity on a camera on a food plot that was interesting to me. A lot of deer all of a sudden at once. No shooters, but some close to shooters. And I knew something was going on. So I moved in there, set up, and I thought, well, I'm going to sit up a little bit far back. I'm going to watch, and maybe I'll take a doe because I'm far enough back or whatever. and I was still in the action. I was still pretty close. And that whole maybe I'll take a doe thing, I regret that. But this doe comes in, and I shoot it, and it runs over and dies. And I look to my right, and there's a nice buck standing. I'm like, oh, that might be a shooter. And he's looking intently. He didn't see me shoot, but he knows something happened. He saw that doe run out of there hard, and he probably heard the shot. And he's like, his head's jerking around. He's like looking. And while I'm staring at him, I see something out of my peripheral, and I look down. And there's this giant buck walking right underneath me, and he's alert. And I go and I draw my bow, and this thing sees me in the tree. I think it saw me before I even drew. It looked up in the tree because it's looking for where that bow shot came from. Because I'm sitting there shooting does when I should be concentrating on bucks, you know. And I ended up wounding that deer. I shot it right here, and I got like a foot of penetration. And I tracked it across 2 properties. Never recovered that deer. Made me sick because it was a huge deer, and I know I killed it. But the whole point is, if I would have let that doe go, and that ain't the only time that that's happened to me. And after a while, if you keep making the same mistake, you go from making a mistake to being an idiot. You make mistakes, you got to correct those mistakes in the future, or they'll keep reoccurring. So I don't waste my time shooting does. I want to get a good buck. And maybe for some people it's easier to get a good buck, or they're after a decent buck, not a giant buck, or not the best they can get, or whatever. I'm hunting for a certain class of buck that it's not maybe as big as some people because they're hunting private land or whatever. But for me, I can say that the class I lock in on is about something that I'm going to probably, out of my 50 to 70 hunts a year, get 3 or 4 opportunities, sometimes less, a year. So if say 1 out of 20 hunts, I see a shooter buck, why would I take one of those chances out of there? You know what I mean? If I spend 10 days hunting does, that's 10 days I don't have an opportunity to shoot a buck. I want to put every single second I have in the season into shooting the buck that I'm after. That's not to say I don't kill does. That's not to say, but my concentration is on buck hunting. And if I don't do that, I won't have the success to the degree that I have. Now, success for me might be different. I'm not saying nobody should do that, shoot does or whatever. I'm just giving you a window into my logic, my thinking, the way I work. Because there's nothing wrong with somebody that freezer first, you know. Like Lou just shot a nice buck just the other day. Mm-hmm. You know, not a monster, but a 2-year-old 8-pointer, which is pretty good for Michigan. He was ecstatic. You know, more power to him. He's a meat hunter. And he got a decent buck too. I mean, more power to him. I love that about him. But for me personally, for my goals, I'm concentrating on bucks.
All right. Questions are piling up here. And I want to talk. I definitely want to keep on topic here with the firearm season. But Devin asks, Dan, do you ever get discouraged that discouraged feeling from bow season to firearm? And what's the best way to combat that? Seems like firearm blues set in, especially in Michigan with public.
Yeah, you know, I just grab the gun and go, and I get into gun mode for me. But I do get that little bit of just before gun season, if I don't have my bow buck done, that like, God, I really want to make this happen. Mm-hmm. And then you start getting where you start seeing less and less deer, like right about now, and it's like hard. They're still there. They're still moving. You still get on them, but you know the people are coming, and you got to make some desperate moves, and it happens. But for me, I kind of enjoy the gun season too. If you're seriously just a bow hunter, yeah, it can suck. But you know what I'd do if I was just a bow hunter? I'd grab the bow and I'd bow hunt during gun season. And for me, I would have a different look at it, because sometimes I do that. Like I hunt during youth season. I got to wear orange, look like a stupid pumpkin out there, and I hunt with a bow a lot during muzzleloader season. I have muzzleloaders. I just kind of like the bow hunt during that time frame. I gun hunt with the rifle during rifle season. But it's just there's this kind of like weird smirk, like, yeah, I'm gonna get it done with the bow and show it to gun hunters. You know what I mean? And sometimes I do. There's been plenty that I've shot during a gun season with my bow, where I've got nice
Sure.
bucks, and there's a little bit of pride in that, you know. So and then I don't know where you're at, but in Wisconsin, I can throw my gun tag on a bull buck if I shoot it during gun season. There's a lesser weapon rule, so you can literally shoot two bucks with a bow in Wisconsin. So you can kind of look at it as an extra opportunity to get another buck. Now, if you're in Michigan and you don't
He's
really
in
want to
Michigan.
participate in the gun season, hey, when your gun season's going on, rut is going on in a lot of places. Get in your truck and take a ride. And a lot of places that are a lot better than Michigan. You could
Oh, so you mean like maybe take an out of state trip?
Illinois, you could be in Indiana, places
Yeah.
where the rut is going hard at that time frame, and you could get onto some way better bucks than Michigan. So if it's bothering you that much, there's a lot of ways to get around that.
Yeah, and I think Indiana's a pretty reasonable priced over the counter non-resident tag. Probably one of the more reasonable ones throughout
Ohio's
the Midwest.
too, and Ohio's incredible. And
Yeah.
Michigan's really close to a lot of good states.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're a hop, skip, and a jump from a lot of good hunting areas. All right, this one is from Daniel Underwood. Dan, wind blowing uphill, thermals pulling downhill. Which one wins?
Which one took the steroids?
I guess we'd have to know what kind of wind speeds for one.
Yeah, I would say generally, thermals always win. Always set up
Yeah.
the thermals. Generally, when deer come in, when your deer are moving, it's usually that last hour or first hour, and at those time frames, the wind is going to be variable, and
Yeah.
unless you have a strong wind in the morning and evening, it's going to pretty much mostly rely on the thermals. And I will set up directly upwind of deer on many occasions, knowing that the thermals are going to kick in the evening, and base my whole hunt on thermals, especially in hill country. I mean, when you get outside of hill country, thermals are a little less predictable. Wind usually wins. But if you get in steep hills, thermals always win. Oh, not always, but 95% of the time. So I would trust the thermals over the actual wind. I mean,
Sure.
Scott got the point, though. I mean, if you start getting the wind heavy enough, it'll beat it.
Yeah.
Or if you get like a real overcast day and you got a heavy wind.
This is somewhat on that same topic there. Edward asks, I have coal land that wasn't put back to state requirements and was taken and made public. Most points have several around. Wind swirls bad, and it's getting me busted. How can I get to him?
Always set up below 'em.
Set up low?
Yep. Set up not low, below the deer,
Below, yeah.
because your thermals are going to drop.
All right.
So, I mean, I guess it gets problematic if the deer are coming from below. But a lot of times they're bedding on those hills and stuff and coming around the hill or whatever. If you can get below the deer. So literally, most of my setups, and I think a lot of people don't get this, even in flat land, most of my setups when I'm going in and I'm looking at the roll of the land and I'm setting up on a deer and I'm looking at the trails and stuff, I'm tending to want to set up not on the downwind side, but on the downhill side because of thermals in the evening, because they generally flow downhill. And a lot of the time you get calm right before dark, right when those deer move, and that you're going to get that flow downhill. So I try to look for something where the wind and the thermal's in my favor, but especially the thermal. And you won't see that thermal when you're setting up. You're setting up, a few hours before dark, and you're just going to feel breeze, and you're just going to see milkweed float a certain way. It's going to change as the sun starts hitting the horizon.
For
and then
sure.
it's flowing downhill as soon as it gets calm. And that's why you want to be downhill of the deer.
Yeah. Josh Larson, Dan, I can find the bucks, but for some reason I can't get them to pattern there when I'm not, and I'm and not around for days at a time. When I'm there, I've tried a lot of tricks to get them interested.
So,
I'm not, yeah, I can't get
you
them to
can't
pattern there.
pattern.
Let's say that again.
You can't get him the pattern when he's there or pattern at all.
I can't get them to pattern there. I think when he's there, when
Okay,
I'm
so
not, and not around for days at a time, and then I'm there, I've tried a lot of tricks to get them interested.
there's a couple of things with that. I mean, these deer float around a little bit. I mean, I've ran cameras in the buck bedding areas, and what you see is a tendency. You don't see anything locked in stone. So you get like most your buck bedding areas, you get like a 2 week period where sometimes it's a little less, sometimes a little more, but you get like a 2 week period when that buck's there the most, and even that in that 2 week period of say 14 days, maybe he's there 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the odds of sitting someplace where he's there once in a while, right? So you're hunting those spots where he's coming in and out of and hopping around and trying to get him. And I mean, some places are different. I mean, some places have less bedding, some have more. Like when I'm looking at a map, the last thing I want to do is hunt a spot that's got like 100 great areas for bedding. You look at that like, holy cow, is this laid out for a buck? Try hunting a single buck down in that. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But if it's got 5 spots, you pretty much know where that buck's going to be in one of those 5 spots. You know what I mean? So it depends on the terrain as far as, how many bedding spots he has and stuff like that. But he's going to hop around a bit. And you're going to have to try to get your timing right. What you got to do is look for patterns like with the wind, patterns with the type of day it is. They will bed in a spot because the wind's blowing a certain direction. They'll bed in a spot because they're getting out of the sun on a sunny day. They'll bed in a spot, where they're close to a food source.
Mm.
And you kind of just got to keep hopping around trying to cut them off. And when you get into these areas, you get close to the bedding, they're going to know you were there. And they're not going to tolerate it so that they move. So you kind of eliminate these areas as you hunt them. Not totally, because I've seen on the when I did testing with it, where you put a camera on a bedding area, you go in and you hunt it, you leave. I've seen on the camera where the buck comes back a day or two later and beds there anyways. But I would imagine occasionally they have people go through. So putting a little bit of pressure on the spot isn't bad. I know one guy that was doing my method where I always preach you hunt a spot once you move, right? There was a guy that was hunting the spots for like 3 days in a row, doing fairly well. And, he wouldn't come back after that, but he'd hunt it for 3 days in a row. And there was another guy that would hunt it in the evening and the morning. And I kind of like that, where you're in there twice. You know what I mean? But you get your scent in there, and then that deer's going to be less likely to be there, and there's only so many places left. And you kind of rotate through that. You make them feel uncomfortable in the spots where you've been, and more comfortable. You stack them, you know what I mean, into those other spots. But, yeah, I mean, the pattern-wise, they get on patterns, but none of those patterns seem to be lock solid. Every now and then, and it's not very often, but every now and then you get one that just locks in a pattern day after day in the same spot. But what I do see is you see a pattern where it lasts 2 days or 3 days. So if you got one locked, you get right in it right away the next day. You go right back after it.
Sure. I lost this question here. Where was it? Oh, this is from Brian Griggs. Dan, have you always been a deep thinker, even when you were a young hunter?
I'm going to probably think about that for about 30 minutes.
Let's cut away to a Kansas song right now.
I do think there's something to certain hunters in the way that they think. I think the way that you comprehend things and the way that you look at things really determines on how you develop as a hunter. I've always tried to like never have something be random in my head. There's always a reason for things that happen. And when you try to quantify or justify what happened here, you can look for the repeats and stuff. So I've been like this most of my life, the way I think about things, and I think it's really helped me grow as a hunter.
Sure. All right. Comment here from Ryan Miller. I cannot wait to see Dan's gun deer drive videos. I really appreciate those. So let's talk about that a little bit because we're about to get into that this weekend. We have Wisconsin firearms season. Why don't you kind of maybe break down a little bit what your 9-day firearm season here in Wisconsin looks like?
But first of all, let's just say right away that on the private channel, I did a drawing, and I did draw 3 people. Andy, Andy P, I think it is. He's coming with us on the gun drives, and Tom from the Hunting Factory's coming, and uh, it's Kyle. What? Kyle's got a channel, right? He was going to come, can't now. So we got 2 people coming from the drawing. So I just want to say that this year we have probably over a dozen people that are going to be on the hunt. So it's going to be a lot of action. I'm pretty sure we're going to kill some deer. What I don't have is a cameraman. I tried to get the guy I had last year, and he said it was just too hard on him. He can't. He didn't even walk into swamps. He just followed me around, like only when we always put him on somebody that was a shooter, and he couldn't take it. So I wish I had a cameraman, even an inexperienced one. But
yeah, and I'll be at my deer camp, so otherwise I would be there.
But that's the thing is everybody that I know, except for that guy, hunts. They all hunt. So it's hard. We could take turns, one person not hunting, one person filming. But you're already taking turns where you push twice, then sit once. And it gets even a little worse when you got to be a cameraman. But it is what it is. I'll take a tripod around long. I'll put a camera on my gun, and we'll get what we can. And we've done that in the past, and the videos come out just fine. So I think the video is going to go over well. We're onto some good bucks. Hopefully we can put some of them up and shoot them. But we've been seeing a few in the areas that we're planning on hunting. There's been some pretty good bucks in those spots.
All right. So you want to break it down? What's your 9-day firearms season here in Wisconsin looks like? Like kind of what your thought process is? Do you do any sitting, opening morning?
I'll tell you, if I look back over time, not just what's going on now, but let's go back in history a little bit, right?
Okay, let's take it back.
The best hunting I ever did with a gun, when I killed my biggest bucks with a gun, was probably when I was in my 20s, and I hunted a little less swamp, more woodlot type, river bottom type stuff. And it was like open end thick kind of thing, kind of like farm areas. And I figured out where the bedding areas were, and I'd go in on a crosswind and on my own in every single bedding area that I had scouted over time. That I thought, and I go from best to worst or whatever. I'd sneak in on a crosswind and sneak into those bedding areas and try to jump those deer in a way that I could shoot them. And when they'd pop out of their beds, I'd blast them. And I've gotten some pretty big bucks doing that, or knowing where they're bedded and sneaking on those bedding areas. I got my biggest buck. I think he scored 189. I crawled up on him in his bed because I knew where he bedded quite often on a west wind. And I crawled up and jumped up in front of his bed, and he was there, and shot him at 20 yards. I could have shot him with a bow. He just stood there in his bed with these giant eyes staring at me like, what the hell just happened? And I shot him right in his bed with a shotgun. I killed a lot of bucks like that. But over the years, I started doing drives with Dave probably, I want to say about 30 years ago. And me and him would do like one-man drives. I'd do a little push for him, a little push for, but we'd sit the opening weekend. And sitting really didn't do me a lot of good. I never really killed anything big sitting. It was usually the only deer you saw opening weekend was push deer and I never saw big bucks get pushed. If you jumped a big buck, he had an escape plan, and he got into thick cover and got away from people really quick and got away from trees. So the big bucks never ran through the funnels. They never ran through the woods. Sitting in a tight spot, waiting for people to kick them to you, never worked for me ever on big bucks, ever. So we would sit opening weekend for quite a few years, probably 5, 6 years, and never really got anything. You'd see deer, but nothing over 2 years old, or every now and then a 3-year-old would come out. But we would see bigger bucks later in the week when things would slow down. But then we started doing those pushes later on. We started getting good at it and stuff. And then we started learning that people got into those spots that we wanted to push. So we tried to get there earlier. We started figuring out that if we went in there, like opening day before anybody got in there, you drive by, make sure there's nobody hunting there. You see no orange, we'll quick drive that. We started getting a lot more action. So we started doing these pushes opening weekend. And I don't know if it's more successful. It's certainly not more successful than what I did when I was in my 20s because of the size of the bucks I'd shot. I saw a lot less deer, but I'd get my crack by the end of the week usually of just solid hunting like that, which I don't even know that I could do nowadays the way I would do that, because I would be hunting from, walking well before daylight and then hunt the whole entire day and get home well after dark. And repeat that every single day of the season. Take one little small break in the afternoon on Thursday for Thanksgiving. But nowadays it revolves around those drives on opening weekend. And then later in the week, I do try and do the sneak thing, but it's a little harder in the swamps that I'm hunting nowadays. A lot of times I get up close to these big bucks and you jump them and you have no shot. Sometimes you can't even see him. You can hear him run off. Don't know for sure if it was him. Sometimes you get a glimpse, and by the time you get the gun up, it's just cattails. But I'm always conniving, always thinking, and I do have a plan for this year. I know of some big bucks in an area, and when the drives settle down, me and Eric are going in after them. And I got a plan on how we're going to go about circling them and pushing them to each other. And based on past years of me going in there solo and trying to kill them, I kind of know where they run, and I'm going to set up where they run and let Eric do his thing of sneaking on them. He's pretty good at that, and he's younger than I am. And he's going to go sneak these bedding areas, and I'm going to kind of sit on a ladder where there's no trees, and we're going to try and kill one of these giants, or at least a good one. There's probably 5 good bucks in the area that I'm thinking, and nobody's getting back there because of the terrain and how far you have to walk. So we're gonna do that, and maybe even take a third person along, or a fourth if we can find somebody that's good enough that we trust. But that's my plan for the season. I think we're going to kill a lot of deer in the drives, and we're going to kill some big bucks probably. But when you're hunting with a dozen people, will it be me? Will it be Eric? Will it be one of the guests? Who knows who will kill what?
Have you ever experienced any like kickback or any negativity with doing the drives? I mean, it's a massive tradition here in Wisconsin. You don't see it quite as much as you used to. It still happens, but oftentimes you don't start to see that until after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
With you guys going out there opening weekend right away, guns a-blazing, do you guys, have you had any negative feedback in terms of that?
Most of the negative feedback is like when we do these shows and stuff, when we're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or when you're talking about it online, or when people watch the videos, the comments.
Yeah.
The negative feedback in the field isn't really. Every now and then you get somebody gets pissed off at you. But most people don't understand what you're doing. Like, they don't realize you're driving past the thing, seeing if there's any cars there, seeing if there's any orange in the stuff before you go in. But for the most part, the people that do get mad are people that you didn't see there or something. And it's not very often. But when they do, in most cases, those people had no chance in the world of killing a deer unless you push the deer out by the time we do the drives. you know, more so than negative feedback from others, what we get is people recognize my truck or they see us, or maybe they don't even know who we are, but they see we're doing a drive and they surround us. They go quick run around to a spot that where we're going to put a sitter, and they cut you off so that they can shoot the deer that you're doing the work for.
Yeah.
We get that a lot, which is pretty rude. We had one time when I put a kid in a spot where I knew it was a kill spot, and we went to do a drive, and while we're pushing, a truck goes by like 2 or 3 times watching us, then parks on the road, jumps out and stands on the road with a gun, and as the buck's running up to this kid, he shoots it. Just shoots right through our drive to the buck, and I thought that was pretty asinine.
Yeah.
But we get a lot of that. So generally, what we do now is we pull up and we start setting something up, and other people come. We just pack up and we move to the next one. I have had people follow me though too, and like try to get on each one of them, which gets to be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, almost at that point, you'd almost rather be like, well, just come up to us and be a part of it, as opposed to, so that, for one, safety reasons, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to know where everybody's at. I mean, that's one of the biggest things when it comes to deer drives is safety. And there's right ways of doing it, and there's absolutely wrong ways of doing it. And
Yep.
from all the videos and stuff I've watched of you guys doing this throughout the years, you're very, very meticulous about everybody knowing their responsibilities and where they're supposed to be in that communication. Because otherwise you don't really hear a lot of, I can't remember last time I heard a news story and about anything wrong going, anything bad happening on a deer drive. That's not to say that it doesn't happen, but it's a safety thing. I mean, I grew up doing them too. We would do them opening weekend, usually Sunday afternoon, or even Monday morning or something like that, or Monday midday is when we would start ours, because things just kind of tend to shut down, especially on public land. When you get that many guys moving around out there on opening day, those deer are going to kind of shut down. They're going to get locked in pretty tight.
You look at your cameras lately; they're already shut down.
Yeah. Well, yours, so we talked about this last week. Mine actually picked up for a few days this week here. But then today they shut it right back down again. So it looked like there was a hot doe moving through, because you get a picture of a doe and then two bucks within a minute, later. But
there's some cool things about the drives too. A lot of people think it's just haphazard. Like we go and circle the deer and go in there and just
no, it's a process.
Crazy, but there's really a process to what we're doing. There's really a lot of thought into it. So, like we'll have an area where the deer are bedded, and we kind of know, they're in this patch of cattails, say, and you got forest over here, you got forest over here, you got a block of woods here, and you got some open grass here, so they can come out of this in one way or another. And you're like, okay, how are we going to go at this? Well, you want to make sure, no matter which way you're going to drive it, that doesn't really matter the direction. What matters is that whoever's going in first, whether it's the standers or the sitters, the first ones in are the ones downwind. You do not want those deer to smell guys setting up. Well, like everybody go in at once. You guys go stand over there. We're going to go in over here. Don't do that. Because if you do that, those deer some of the deer are going to take off.
You're going to just scent bump them.
Right.
Yeah.
And another thing is that once you get
so say that again one more time, Dan. You want your standers to approach.
Okay, let's look at it like this. Deer are right where the tip of my finger is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wind's blowing like this, right?
Yep.
You're going to put these guys over here that are either the standers or the pushers. It doesn't matter. And you're going to put guys on the other side, right? And you can either have the pushers line up first, or you can have the standers line up first, and then you have the other guys go into the upwind side, because some of those deer are going to scatter as soon as they smell your wind.
Sure.
So you want to have people set, even if it's the guys getting ready to drive. If that's the way you need to push them from, You have those guys in there with guns ready when those guys go into to set up. Um, Another thing we do in cattails is drivers can't shoot in them cattails unless they know what they're shooting at, because
Yeah.
you know you have to know where everybody is. The standers are not shooting into cattails at drivers they can't see, because these cattails are 10 feet high.
Right.
So we're getting up on these tall ladders, or we're getting up into trees around the edges, and we're shooting down into the dirt, and then you can see the hats of everybody that's out there doing the drives. Um, so another thing is, a lot of guys want to go out there and they want to make a lot of noise to push those deer. That's the last thing you want to do. And we see other drivers doing this. They're hooting and hollering, hey, 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 hey. You know, the last thing you want to do is tell them you're coming. It ain't no different if somebody's coming for you. You can plan and plot before they get to you if you know they're coming, right?
Yeah.
You want those drivers to kind of almost sneak. Matter of fact, what we do a lot is you walk 10 steps and you stop. And you don't move for a couple seconds. And those deer go into panic mode. If they're near you, they think, he sees me or something. He sees me, right?
Yeah.
And then when you take that first step, they bust. Or sometimes they just bust when you stop.
Much like rabbit hunting.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. You kind of walk hard for a second. Like when you're going to come to a stop, you walk a little harder and you stop hard, like almost like, like a stomp.
right.
If you're right there, they jump up. But you don't want them to know you're coming until you're close, which is hard because cattails are noisy. But don't do it excessively. We see a lot of those bigger bucks sneak through the drivers. We kill the biggest bucks usually on what we call the back door. So we have the drivers go through and we leave a guy behind. And that guy covers that back door, and the biggest bucks usually get shot on that. Like I shot a nice 12-pointer one time on one of the drives. The whole drive was over. Everybody went through the whole patch, and they got to an island that we drive to, and they're all on top of this island talking, and I'm sitting in the tree just watching, and this 12-pointer gets up where everybody just drove through and starts sneaking past me to go back out, and I shot it.
Sure.
If he would have just stayed bedded, he'd have been fine. But we have a lot of drives where we put guys every 10 feet, and they jump a nice buck in here, and there's no way out. It's completely surrounded by openness, and the buck never comes out. Drive it a second time, somebody else sees the buck, never comes out. We've had that happen many times. Those deer will dance around you. If they can hear you coming and stuff, the best thing you can have is it be windy and noisy.
Sure.
Because those deer won't be able to hear you coming, won't know exactly where you are. They're more likely to run.
Do you guys ever do, say you're going through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your pushers are going through and they get to a certain point, whatever that end point is. Do you ever have anybody circle back and then you come back through again?
We've tried that. It hasn't been successful.
It would be tough to do, but
here's the thing. I mean, a lot of these drives, we got a lot of varying degrees of ability with us, right? And you have guys driving that are young and old and everything else with what I have coming along with me. And they get through a drive and literally they're falling through to their waist in water sometimes. They're pushing through these cattails and it's so hard on them. By the time they're done with this drive, they're half dead. And then tell them, line back up, go back through. There was a buck in there, It's really
maybe swap some guys out.
and the motivation. I mean, we've had it where I've seen a really good buck or something. I can't get everybody to go back in there, and we have to swap guys, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's really. But nowadays we're starting to get a more developed, better crew.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same point, we're bringing in new people. We invite people along and stuff, and some of those people just can't handle it. And a lot of people, if they're new to it and they go into the swamp, they freak out. You fall through to your waist, they think you're going to die. There is no bottom. And you can feel that, and it scares the piss out of them. But you're really not going to die. You go down to your armpits, you crawl back out. You're nasty, you're wet, And even that's, you're usually not. It's not like we do that we go through our armpits every time. Right. But during the drives, there'll be one or two people that go through, up to their waist probably every now and then, real bad. But there'll be some soakers for sure. But that scares some people. There was one deer that we got on drives one time where there's this one section that just keeps getting narrower and narrower of cattails and pinches down. And we drive it in a way that the deer keep going down. So if they get through the standards, they keep going further and further down this narrow point. And there was some snow on the ground, and we kept pushing this doe. And we had a few doe tags and people that wanted does, and we wanted to shoot this doe. And she kept running through everybody. And she got into this last section, and we were really dogging her. I mean, people were shooting at her and stuff, missing and seeing her, and she'd run hard. And for about an hour, we kept moving her. And then we get her down to that really narrow section, and she's in there, and we know she's in there. She got through one guy. She ran right underneath him. He was in the ladder. It ran almost through the rungs of the ladder, and he just sprayed bullets and missed the whole time. And, doe goes into this pinch point. We know she's in there, and I go up on this hill, and I get to the back of the pinch, and I'm like, if she comes out of that pinch, I got her. I got 30-06. I'm up there, about 100 yards from there, and we got it completely surrounded. And Jeff goes in there and starts working this, and we don't know if there's big bucks in there too. That's why we just keep doing this, but we know she's in there, right? Mm-hmm. He keeps doing this, and all of a sudden, I see her poke out, and I take a shot, and she reacts like this and turns around and runs back in. And I don't know if I hit her or not. She didn't act hit, but she ran back in. So one of the guys that was there was at that time. Now he's like really good because he's been doing this for years. But that time he'd never been in that swamp. And I'm like, go back in there. She's over there. He's walking. He goes, I can't. I'm gonna fall through. This is really bad over here. And I'm like, a deer just ran through there. He goes, dude, I can't walk out here. I'm like, come up here. It took forever. I had to get him where I was with the rifle, and I went in there and got on the track and went in there. And you're walking on a waterbed, because it's floating.
Yeah, like a bog. Yep.
I followed those tracks, and I actually found that deer in a bed, no blood coming up to it from my tracks. And I snuck right to it and poked it with the rifle, and it didn't move. And then when I checked it, it's dead. And that deer literally did not have a bullet hole in it.
Oh, okay. That's this one. Okay. Yeah, I remember this. I remember that video. Yep.
We skinned it. There wasn't a bullet hole in it anywhere. We ran it till it died.
Yeah, it died of a heart attack or something.
We just kept running in circles in there.
I know. That is, I do remember that video vividly. Yes, now that you say that. That's crazy. I mean, and the thing of it is I've actually heard some of those other stories in the past, where a guy is shot at a deer. There's no blood, there's no entry hole or whatever, but the deer just dies. Like it just collapses. Like, I don't know. It's nature, right? Weird things happen
more than people would think.
Probably. That's I remember that though. No.
I mean, if all those guys in orange ran me like that, I'd probably kill over too.
Yeah, right. Okay, so most of this is done in swamps and that. Do you guys ever do any drives through some woods, through solid ground? No, it's always swamps.
Yeah, because when we drive the dry land, you shoot does and fawns.
Yeah.
You drive the swamps, you shoot bucks.
Right, because that's where they're going.
Mm-hmm. So you got to get in the mindset of I'm always hunting bucks. And like you just heard, I don't mind taking a doe or two. I mean, we got, I like eating venison too, and I might not get venison if I'm holding out for a big buck. So I like venison, so I like shooting a doe or two.
Yeah.
But we're going to drive this stuff where we believe the bucks are. And we're just going to keep hunting buck after buck after buck until, and we're going to pop some up. The downfall of shooting the does is we got to drag them out of there. So you shoot does and then you're spending time getting the deer out. But we got a pretty effective system for that too. I mean, we whistle, Eric comes running, we throw him on his back, and he carries like 6 of them at a time. But actually we bring in a big sled. I got a pretty balanced cart if there's a dry trail that we can drag them out on, in some of the places. But we get them out as fast as we can. Get them field dressed, get them out as fast as we can so we get on to the next drive.
Sure.
So it's a matter of, your success is limited to how many drives you do. Yeah. And the more time you spend screwing around, that's why we always there needs to be a leader when you do drives. I've been on other people's drives, and there'd be 5 different people arguing about what they should do next, or who should sit where, or what they should do, or what
Sure.
about the wind this, what about the wind that. What we do is Dan's been doing this for years, and Dan just says this is what we're doing, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't have time to argue. We don't, I don't mind if somebody has a valid point and they want to make it, fine, but we're not going to sit and argue. Another thing about these drives is if you're ever on a drive with people and you get to pick where you want to sit, wouldn't say necessarily sit where the sign is. When deer get up in a drive, they scatter. They just run out anywhere, right? I said deer, not big bucks. When big
Right.
bucks get up, 9 out of 10 times they run either wind to nose or nose to wind. They're either
Okay.
running downwind or they're running upwind, and they'll scatter for a little bit, like if they get surprised, which is what you want to do. Part of the reason you want to surprise them so that they don't have the plan, right?
Right.
They either want to smell what's in front of them, the direction they're going, or they want to smell who's following. One of the two, and that's most of the time. So what I've noticed is if I set up with either the wind in the deer's favor or the wind in my face, I get the most action. Obviously I don't want them to smell me because they won't come to me. But if I got a little bit of a crosswind, or if I can get over a little bit and I can cover an area where they're going to run into the wind, or even more so, I think they like to run wind to tail. In some of these places we have an obstacle, be it a river, be it a lake, be it a farmyard or something that they don't want to run into. Then they're going to go the opposite way. They're going to just go downwind or something. And there's been a lot of spots where nobody wants to sit the stupid spot where there's no sign, no trails, no nothing, when there's real good sign on both ends. And I'll look at the wind and I'll be like, I'll take that spot.
Yeah.
And then I get a buck. And those guys get a lot of action. They'll get the does and fawns and stuff scattering out. But mature does, mature bucks will. There's one spot that I hunt, and my friends can all attest it because that's my spot. Every time we go there, that's the tree I like. I've killed like freaking 15 bucks out of that tree. I've been hunting there so long, the tree died, and I had to move a tree down. But that spot really has no sign. But what it is the west wind blows straight in there from there. And the last couple of years, we've had like either a north or a south wind, like straight north or straight south. And then the guy on the end where all the sign is gets him because that's the way the wind's going.
Sure.
But every time it's a west wind or an east wind, right there is I'm always in the shooting for the bucks.
I just want to backtrack here because Elizabeth asked, "How did you tag it for that for method of kill when we're talking about that doe that wasn't hit with a bullet or anything, just died from being chased?"
For first of all, thanks Elizabeth for buying those memberships.
Yes,
I saw that, but you just didn't
absolutely.
get a chance to say
Thank
nothing.
you.
Really appreciate that. I'm sure the people that got the memberships do too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As far as tagging that deer, I didn't know how to tag it, so I just ate it real quick. No, I just tagged it as if I shot it. I field dressed it, put a kill tag on it. But yeah, I don't know if that's the legal method.
Right. It's a valid question. I
remember being on a hunt one time.
You guys are all using guns, right? And you're shooting at it. I guess I'd just go with that, right? It's just it's a firearm.
I guess if a warden wanted to be picky about that, I guess I probably could have been cited with something. I guess I was on a hunt one time in Buffalo County, and there's a guy hunting across the field from me, a friend of mine's kid, and a big 10-pointer came out. He was walking past him, and he shot it. And this was a gun hunt, and the buck bolted off into the brush. And he wasn't sure about the hit and didn't want to go right after it. It was with a whole bunch of deer, so we waited till morning to go in there. And when we went in there, the buck, we found it dead. He had killed it right away. But here it had no antlers. It was shed. And he goes, I'm telling you, it was a 10-pointer. And it was fresh shed. So we backtracked it, and both sheds were laying on the trail from where he shot it. The antlers fell off after he shot it. And he was like, do I take it as a buck or a doe? And I said, technically, it's antlerless. You put a doe tag on it. He goes, I don't know. And back then you had to register deer. And he goes, no, I'm going to put my buck tag on it and tell him what happened. I'm like, I don't know if that's legal. We kind of argued about it.
He had the antlers, though, right?
He did. But I'm saying, technically, that's an antlerless deer. He goes, it wasn't antlerless when I shot it. I'm like,
right.
Oh, okay.
I think if you have both sets of antlers right there, be like, they fell off. What time of the year was this?
This was in gun season.
Wow.
We've had several. I mean, we had Dave shot one time while he was holding it up for pictures. Both antlers popped off. We got video of that.
I mean, I've seen that stuff like happen in as early as like early December, but I mean, I guess it's only a few weeks later, right? But
a few weeks. A week later is December, right?
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, literally, I had a biologist tell me that 30% of the deer shot in the holiday hunt for does are shed bucks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's December, right?
That's the shame of it too.
Yeah. So anyways, he put a buck tag on that deer. And I said two things. I said, number one, it's antlerless. You should take it as antlerless. Number two, you'd rather take it as antlerless. You still got a buck tag.
Yeah. It's a true story.
When he went down there and there was a warden at the registration place, looked at that deer and asked him what happened. He told him, and he said, if you would have taken that as a doe, I'd have cited you. And he's like, then you should pretty much clarify that in the rules.
Yes.
Because if you shoot a shed buck, it's technically an antlerless deer when you take it. So I mean, if you beat the antlers off with a baseball bat, then you broke the law. But if you take an antlerless deer, you're taking an antlerless deer.
Yeah.
So I didn't agree with the warden, and I think if that would have went to court, you'd win. But he tagged it as a buck, and the warden said, "You shot a buck. It was a buck."
But that was in November during the 9-day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the last week of the season. It was like a Friday, I think. We still had a couple days to go or something, but it was right at the end.
So the day after Thanksgiving, sure. Yeah. Boy, there is kind of a little bit of a gray area there. Have they revised anything in the regulations since?
I believe Dave tagged his as a buck too, but both antlers popped off.
Yeah.
But Dave, I believe, tagged that buck before the antlers popped off. So that's a little.
And then they popped off. Yeah.
Yeah. He actually shot that buck in its bed. We did a little drive, and that deer and a bigger deer, two big bucks, came in from behind me, like out of somebody else. Somebody else jumped them or something. I'm facing the drive, and they came from behind me, and they slowed. And there's another guy that was new hunting with us, and he saw it happen and didn't want to shoot because they were closer to me than him. Mm-hmm. And he didn't yell or anything. And I heard something walking underneath me. I'm like, I think there's a deer coming. And I looked down, and there's two big bucks underneath me. And I swung like this, and they saw me at the same time and bolted. And I shot and missed. It was thick cover. And they get away from me, and it was snowing on the ground. And what's funny is when we went in on that hunt, there was a guy going in at the parking spot, and he was the only guy. So we were like, we were going to do drives. Where you hunting? We'll avoid you. He goes, this field down here. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy's drunk. You could tell he was drunk. And he had a backpack. He had a 12-pack in the backpack. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. Just a horrible human. But he told me where he was going to be, and I knew the spot. He explained it to me. I'm like, okay, we'll avoid that,
Like the plague.
But wouldn't you know, those bucks, when I spooked them, and this is only like maybe an hour after he went in, ran right towards that field. And I'm like, listen, I'm waiting for his shot. Don't hear it. But then the drivers come out, and we get together, and we're like, what are we going to do? I'm like, we're going after these things. Because the one was really big. The one was probably, maybe 170. It was at least 160s.
Yeah.
But the smaller one was probably like 140, you know. So maybe not quite, maybe 130s, but still a decent buck for gun. And so I'm like, well, let's get on the tracks, and then you guys get out here and blah blah blah. And I wanted to be on the track, but I felt like I knew the area better than anybody. Everybody there kind of half knew it, but I really knew it. And I'm like, I gotta place these guys. So I'm like, Dave, you and your buddy take the track. One of you stare at the track. One of you look ahead, right? And I remember Dave being a little pissy about it. I don't want to take the track. I'm like, then you're placing these guys. And he was like, I don't know where to go. I'm like, what do you want to do here? So he took the track. And I would have rather been on the track, but he was like, he thinking that he's just going to jump him and somebody else is going to shoot him, I think is what he was thinking. Mm-hmm. But he gets on that track and he ends up shooting that buck in its bed. He sees it look up at him, he shoots it, and then the other one jumps up further and runs out, and then ran right underneath one of our guys, and he unloads his gun and never touched it, the real big one. Oh. But Dave shot that buck right in its bed. It never even got out of the bed. And the funny part was that buck had walked right through that opening where that guy was, and I'm like, when I got over by Dave, I'm like, did you come through that opening? He goes, yeah. I go, wasn't that guy over there? He goes, yeah, he's in a blind over there. And I go over there, and the tracks are like 40 yards in front of his blind in snow, in an open grass, right past his blind. I walk over, and the guy's like, how's it going? I'm like, did you see anything? He goes, nope, nothing came through here. I don't know if he's sleeping or what. We put it right past him. And David
wow.
in the bed.
Unreal.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Edward S. says, Wisconsin law states if antlers fall off, it has to be tagged antlerless.
There you go. That's what I said.
Right. I mean, when you think about it.
But when they fall off, when?
Right. But
because you're dragging it out and they fall off. And now you don't even tag them. You tag them later. You take them when you get home because you don't really tag them. You just call it in. It's
right. Now you register. So let's say that happens, right? You're dragging it out and the antlers pop off. Both of them. They both pop off. Who's ever going to know? You know?
YW. Whatever you want.
Right. I mean, nobody would know. Nobody would know.
You know, I just, it wasn't too long ago. I ran into a warden and we were shooting the crap about hunting. And he said, poaching has gone down a lot in the last few years. I go, no, it hasn't. It's just become easier.
Right.
Now we don't have to register them. We can just drag them home. Once you get them in your garage, you're like, okay, well, I got it here. I don't have to put a tag on it. I don't have to register it.
Right. There's no way you have 48 hours to register the deer after it's been killed. Even with that said,
good point.
Who knows? Who knows when you actually shot it? I mean, they don't have that down to a science where they can differentiate like how long that deer's been dead. Like,
well, even so, once it's in your freezer, I mean,
right? If you're processing yourself,
it's just too easy the way they do things now. Not to mention they took all that business away from those places, those bars, those gas stations, stuff. And that was kind of a fun pastime. And I kind of like putting the goals. I mean, somebody that's up to something, they're up to something, they have to go take that deer in and show it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So then if they're shooting a deer with a rifle during bow season, because they're on private land, they think they can get away with it. They have to worry about somebody's going to look at that deer or check it to see if there's gunpowder burns or something, because they have to actually physically take it and check it. They don't know if there's going to be a warden there that day or not, or, now there's no care in the world. I mean,
I agree. I mean, that was one of the fun things about the firearms season was registration stations. You go to town, whether it be the Quick Trip or the local bar, maybe your town had a couple different ones, but you'd go and check those out. You'd literally have guys just kind of hanging out, midday, eating their lunch, just waiting to see what rolled in and who was bringing what in. And then getting out of your vehicle and chatting with that hunter and let's hear about the hunt.
It's always amazing to me that you're hunting a certain class of deer, you're seeing a few here, a few there, then you go to registration, you realize, holy crap, a lot of people are killing giant bucks. You start 3 or 4 of them at registration, like, holy crap,
Yeah.
more than you'd think. And
Right.
nowadays I see that like I go to a local meat shop, which is Pernat's is the place I like. Pernat's in Exonia is the place I like to have
Yeah.
my
Burnitz is good. Yep.
yeah. And during the bow season, they got a walk-in cooler for the local people. They don't do that during gun season because they don't want non-locals using that or stealing deer or something. I mean, they
Sure.
got cameras in there and stuff too. But I mean, even bow season, when I shot that 8 pointer that turned out to be that 2.5, when I took that thing into the freezer, when I walked in there, I'm like, holy crap! There's just this monster 12 pointer laying there. I'm like, holy crap! Who the hell shot that? When I looked at the name, I didn't know who it was, but often you walk in there and there'll be something really big laying in there. You know,
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's about the only place you get to do those kinds of things anymore, is at a processor. And then even with that said, how many people are processing their own deer? So you don't get to see that. Gas stations, a quick trip, a local quick trip. Every town here in Wisconsin's got a quick trip for the most part, and that's still a place. I mean, heck, even for myself, I'll almost intentionally stop at a quick trip with my buck on the rack on the back of my truck just to go grab a Monster Energy drink or something like that. And every single time I walk back out, there's people standing around. They want to hear the story. And that's fun to do. I mean, that was the beauty of registration stations. Outside of the fact that I think it cut down, like as we spoke about, on poaching maybe a little bit and keeping people honest. But that was just such a tradition. Registration stations, whether it be a gas station or a bar, you get guys that be like, oh, if it'd be the bar, you get those those locals that were in there, that've been in there most of the afternoon coming out. We had a bar by us that used to have a pole with a scale, and you could back your truck right underneath it. They'd hook up, winch it up, and you could get your weight and everything right away. Enter into the big buck contest. You know,
I
those
hunted
kinds of things were fun.
I hunted at a camp one time. I just went up. I wanted to hunt a certain area of the Northwoods. I really wanted to experience the tracking deer way up in the Northwoods. This is a long time ago. I was like 19 or something,
Yeah.
and I had to drive down this gravel road off of the main road for quite a ways to get to this lake, Island Lake, and they had this little tiny campground. It was like you were in the middle of nowhere, and they had this bar in the woods, which just seems so bizarre to me. Like, who are they going to get for patrons? It was just like this little camping area that would be patrons, and the bartender was this like dyke woman. Her head was shaved, like a butch haircut, like a military sergeant. And this
Yep.
woman smoked this giant cigar. She was great. She wore a tank top, like a wife beater shirt, and she'd been there smoking a cigar, talking crap with the hunters and stuff about hunting and stuff. She had a big buck contest, and they measured it by the size of the wiener. And you had to
My
cut the
God.
wiener off and nail it to a board outside of this place. And the biggest wiener got the prize. Everybody had to put a couple bucks in. It was the most hilarious thing in the world to me. She had this board out there in front of this bar. I'm sure they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Back in the
Where
day,
where was this?
it was in northern Wisconsin, a place called Island Lake. God, I'm trying to think. I think it was up Highway 51 or something, almost to Ashland. I have. I'm sure I could find it if I
If
started studying.
anybody's familiar with this, listening, please drop a comment. I want to know. I want to know more about this. That's next level because for tradition for us was always you hang it from a tree branch and there's a lot of different reasoning behind. I've had people ask me, well, why do you do it or whatever, and that's to let all the other bucks. It's a warning to know that the big hunter's in the woods, and if you mess around, you're gonna find out. Your nuts are gonna be hanging from a tree limb.
All the cocky, arrogant guys like to take them and put them on people's tree stands and stuff.
Oh, that too, yeah. But yeah, there's so many different crazy traditions that go along with it. Outside of the deer drives and stuff, what else do you love about the firearm season? I mean, do you enjoy the camaraderie? I know you don't really have a traditional deer camp per se, but you get together with a big group of guys and you're doing this for multiple days,
Mhm.
like, is that a big drive for you? Is that part of the thing, one of the things that you really like about this time of year or this season is that camaraderie? Because most of the deer hunting is very, very individual, right? I mean, it's a solo thing. You might have guys at camp or that might hunt in the same areas. You might go somewhere, but there's just something different about the firearm season that just kind of brings out the nostalgia and the camaraderie, I feel like.
It kind of grows on you. You know, when I first, you go back, and it ain't all that long, probably 30 years ago, um, beyond 30 years, it was all solo. I was all by myself. I didn't like having people around. Every now and then I'd hunt with somebody, and it'd always be like I'd always feel like tied down.
Right.
Like now I got a meeting time. I got a meeting place. I got to do
You're
this.
handcuffed. Yep.
If I don't come out on time, they're going to be worried about me. That kind of crap. Where I want to be able to do my own thing, and if I get to a place where it's going to take me till 2 a.m. to walk out of there or drag a deer out, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want somebody worrying about me or calling the cops or calling the warden. My God, he's going to die out there because I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm fine. So um, that's the way I was. But as we started getting into this driving thing or whatever, and you get to hunt with your friends and stuff, a lot of these friends are guys that like Jeff Trudell. I met him at work. He worked in an office, at the shop, and met him a couple times, and he started coming hunting with us, and he's been hunting every year since. And to watch him get his big buck, a couple years ago, to see him get deer, and to see how happy he is, to see his kids come along, and his kids grow up, and he's become a great friend. And it's kind of weird because the only thing I know him through is hunting. I see him one weekend of a year, every year. We got several people in our group like that. And the only thing that keeps our little family together is that opening weekend of gun season.
Sure.
We come from around Wisconsin together, and that's our time. And the hardest part for all of us, the guys that have been there since the beginning, is the passing of Dave when missing him, because everything really surrounded him. So there's always ever since he died, there's been a little bit of mourning since then. When you're talking, you start talking about, oh yeah, well, Dave this, Dave that, and even when we go out, who's sitting Dave's island? It's still Dave's island. Who's sitting Dave's tree? You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like, that's a hard part, but
Keep
it
the
is
memory alive.
a family, and it's become something that I don't want to see go away. Even if I got someplace better to hunt or something, I don't think I'd quit. I like what we're doing. I like,
Mm-hmm.
um, later on in the week, things change. But that opening weekend, that first 3-4 days, that to me is really a blast. It's the camaraderie, and I'm literally, instead of putting it like I really want to shoot a big deer, I want to make sure somebody does. I
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure we get a few,
Yeah.
and I try to look at the crowd, the group, and see who's there, and say, I think a deer is going to come out over here, and I think this guy needs a chance.
Yeah.
He hasn't. He's been here 2 years and he hasn't got a shot. Put him over here.
Right.
And I try to balance that, which is hard. You know, but it's just I don't know. It's a different kind of hunt. It's
Yeah.
my real passion is in the bow hunting now, but the gun
Mhm.
hunting thing has become a tradition. It's become. I never thought it would be like this. I always, as younger, I always thought it'd be hardcore like the bow hunting is. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But it morphed into this, and I kind of like it.
I agree 1,000%. My focus is my hardcore focus is always archery season. Once this weekend, opening weekend comes, it's almost like a release where like I can release that valve a little bit and just kind of relax. And then it's about the other guys. I'm more so concerned about everybody else and everybody having a good time and enjoying the camaraderie, being with friends and family, and the deer are a bonus at that point. I mean, you're still after it, right? You know, and I am passing up deer that don't need to be shot, typically speaking. At least as far as, you know, what I want to shoot. But it's just, it is such a fun time and such a tradition to spend that time out there with other people, because the rest of the time during the rest of archery season, you're solo. You're doing things by yourself. Again, you might share a camp or you might go on a trip with somebody, but this person's hunting here and that person's hunting there, and I'm doing my thing. It's still very, very much solo. You might come together for a little bit at night, but your hours are limited. This time of year, you get a little more time because of daylight savings and things to spend time in the evening, maybe going out to dinner, making some steaks, whatever it is that you're doing. It's kind of special and just a little bit more enjoyable. I guess not more enjoyable, just a different enjoyment, I guess, is how I would put it. And I really look forward to it every single year. So like on this Thursday, we always do on the Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoor Show, we do a deer camp special episode, and we open the phone lines and have people call in and talk about what, you know, where they're going, what they're bringing, that kind of a thing. Much like Bob and Brian, for those of you Southeast Wisconsin people, used to do, if you remember those episodes that they did, and maybe they still do because I don't even listen to them anymore, but they used to talk about where you're going, what you're bringing to Thanksgiving, you know. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
So we kind of do that, but it's more like where are you going and what are you taking to deer camp?
When did you do that episode?
That'll be this Thursday, 2 days from now, 2 nights. So if anybody wants to tune in or chime in on that, check us out, Midwest Racks and Rods Outdoors. And then that night we'll post the phone line to call in on. So, but yeah,
So when you go your land, you go and you sit opening weekend, right?
Yes, we sit opening weekend. Yep.
So do you go in the morning?
Oh yeah, very early.
I always said that if they took Wisconsin and they opened up gun deer season at noon, they would kill double the bucks.
You think so?
Maybe not double, but they'd kill a lot more. I think you go in there before daylight, and you got the whole freaking state of Wisconsin walking into the woods.
Yeah.
And every deer knows it. And they instantly go into lockdown. And the only chance you got is private land, and if it's big enough that you're not doing that big of an impact. If guys went in there in the evening and those deer are already bedded, I think a lot more deer would just walk out stupid and die.
Yeah.
I think most of the deer that get shot opening morning are push deer. You know, they're getting shoved around by guys, and those are usually the smaller ones.
Are you talking? Do you think more in terms of public land?
Yeah, but a lot of private lands like public land. It gets it gets pressured a lot. But I even think like you got a lease and you're putting guys on different ends of it. You walk in there opening morning, and if the deer know you're there, I mean, it's over. If you're alert.
You're not lying. We definitely see a significant drop off with each and every sit.
It depends on how big your property is too, because if your neighbors are doing it and you're not, and they're going to put the same impact on, it's going to do the same thing.
Right.
Because your wind's going to go all through there, your scent's going to go all through there. You know, depending on how you come in, but that first sit is so important that I think if it was an evening hunt, a lot more deer would die.
That's an interesting take, and
not saying it should stay all evenings. I'm just saying that first.
No, right, just that first one.
Open it at noon. Yeah.
At noon, and not just maybe like the last 3 hours of the day.
Well, light. You get people get in, get set up, do what they got to do or whatever. get set up, and deer are good and bedded by
Yeah.
noon, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to go in there while they're awake and up and luring around their bedding areas and then announce you're there, scream, "Hey, here I come!"
Yeah.
Probably not doing anybody any favors.
Right. I mean,
Not,
we
not, not to say that I want all those deer to die,
right.
but I do think that there'd be a significantly larger number of deer that would die if they did a noon opener. And I've never heard of that with deer, but they do it with pheasants, they do it with ducks, they do it
Sure.
with all,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I've never actually given that any thought, but you really got my interest piqued on that. Not that I don't think I don't think we're going to shift that way, but
Well,
it
yeah, if you're
does.
trying to tell anybody they're not going out in the morning on opening day, they look at you cockeyed.
Right. Exactly.
But if it
But it
was
would
a
be an interesting
universal law for
experiment.
everybody, I bet you it would make a huge difference.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like if it was a statewide regulation, like that would be interesting. I mean, I know for us, like, so there's three guys that go out on 150 plus acres, and it's that's not a huge property by any means, but it's enough,
Hmm.
especially for three guys. And then there's another property down the road that two guys will hunt. That's just over 40 acres. So, and we definitely take stand location and entrance and exit extremely serious. I mean, throughout the season. I mean, I think that is one of the biggest mistakes hunters make
Hmm.
hunting on private land is their access points, whether it's cover or not. Or if you're walking over a spot that you expect to potentially even see deer,
Hmm.
or the buck, like if you're hunting close to bedding or a food source, and you are walking anywhere close to where you expect to see deer, the game's over.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. I mean,
But you also look at like what my cameras have taught me and what my observations have taught me over the years.
hmm
Come about this season as they're starting to lock down like this, you got a very short window in daylight where you see them, right? Naturally, but maybe a half hour into daylight, right?
yeah,
And that window, they're generally very close to their bedding. So if you're getting close to there, you're walking in there while they're already there, while they're already in that range,
hmm
potentially throwing them out of there.
So we got Skull Viking. Says totally agree with starting at noon. I've seen the biggest bucks standing exactly where they need to be, avoiding a couple hunters. The older bucks definitely know your stand locations. Yeah, I mean, I don't. There's no
Yeah,
doubt about that.
you don't get to be 5.5 years old in a pressured situation without knowing where everybody hunts. And that's the whole thing too. Is another thing is you need to mix it up. Don't hunt the
Mhm.
same tree every year, the same spot or whatever. Especially if you're not getting the results you want. I mean, if you're shooting
Right.
160 every year and you're happy with that, yeah, go sit that spot every year. But if you're shooting a 4 corn, a spike, a 6 pointer, one year you got an 8 pointer, one year you got a 10 pointer, and you're living on that. There was a
Yeah.
spot where we got the 10 pointer. You just keep going back to that spot. You're probably not destined to shoot a whole lot of those in your lifetime. That getting into new spots, new movements, sometimes like managed land, like you're doing, can be more about just growing them, and hunting lightly. I mean, you only got so many situations for stands because a lot of it's
Yeah.
field. Um, but in a lot of cases, those deer pattern you. When I think back to
More than you can pattern them. Yeah.
like Dave's farm, and I've said this before, and I'm sure people have heard me say this before, but Dave's farm was like 70 acres, and it was mostly open. And the way the land funneled, you could put stands in positions where anybody who's been hunting for 10, 20 years would say, this is where a stand needs to go, and it is.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You could do it. You could go out there and you could say where the stands would be, and it'd be the same spots I'd pick. But what we notice is when new bucks would come in there and come through, they would come by those stands like clockwork. But when you had a deer that got to be 5, 6 years old, or like the one that Dave shot that was 7, You watch that deer go through that property and never go by a tree stand when those tree stands are in the perfect funnels, the perfect travel corridors, where if you walk through that land, not only would a deer, a person, a rabbit, anything would go through that funnel that way, and that deer would not. He'd go around in a different way. And it wasn't because he didn't want to walk that way. It's because he knew where we hunted. And you'd watch that deer walk into an opening when he'd move in daylight. The first thing you do is look up to see if you're in the stands and look at each stand, and you could physically watch that. So he knew where those stands were, and he's never seen you in that stand. How does he know that? Because deer don't see with their eyes; they see with their nose. So they learn those spots. They learn where you hunt over time, and you'll continually shoot nice bucks from those stands, because what happens is as year and a half old bucks, they get kicked out, right? So you don't really see these bucks come into your area until they're 2.5. So now the 2.5s are going to walk through those funnels, right? Maybe even at 3.5, they make those mistakes. After 3.5, they're starting to learn, and at 4, they're starting to really pattern where you're at. And where we would kill those bucks is by making moves, mobile moves. We'd move to where they're coming out, and we'd catch them off guard. And that's how we'd kill the big ones. Otherwise, we'd just keep killing nice bucks. That's why I say like a lot of guys will graduate from, deer hunting to buck hunting to nice buck hunting. And then they'll get to a point where they start shooting deer that are like 2.5 to 3. And they get, those deer that don't quite make Pope and Young or just barely make Pope and Young in that range. And they never get anything bigger. And like they'll get the 1 or 2 in a lifetime that are big. Yeah. It's because they're hunting, squirrels expecting to shoot rabbits. It's a whole different animal. A mature buck is a whole different animal from the smaller end. They've patterned you. They've learned you. They're not traveling the same trails. You got to hunt, out of the box. And for gun hunting, that's so important that you don't go to those same spots every year, because they will pattern that spot, and they'll know as soon as the guns start firing, the pressure comes. As soon as they smell all those people enter the woods, it's gun season again. Don't go over there. This is the spot where we never had problems, and they run to that secret safe spot for that time of the year. And bucks are so, as they get aged, they get so specific of timing. Like when gun season is, they're bedding in a certain spot. When it's rut, they're going to a certain doe that they know comes in the heat at a certain time. And when certain crops come on, they go and they bed in a certain spot for that food. And they're constantly changing their bedding spots to these different areas and stuff and moving around. And you got to move with them. But my point is, when gun season comes, it's that timing again. They're going to be in the same spots they were the year before, and you're going to be hunting that same spot where in 1986 you shot a 10-pointer. You know what I mean? You've got to move.
No, you're right. So much, you're right. So much to the point that it's, when you think about it, right? These deer are out there 24/7, 365 days a year. They know every inch, every single bit of that property better than you do. You think like, okay, I've been hunting this particular area or this particular property for over 30 years, and you think you know it inside and out. First off, it changes. I mean, I see it on my property in that areas that used to be wide open now are really thick, and vice versa, and trees die, and there's select cuts that are done, and so that changes. But these deer are out there constantly. Well, but I see nice bucks every single time in this stand or whatever. Yeah. What do you consider a nice buck? 1.5, 2.5-year-old buck? Yeah, they might not be alarmed by tree stands because they've only seen that ladder stand sitting there for 1.5 or 2.5 years of their life. Whereas once you get to those 3.5, 4.5 plus, yeah, they become conditioned and understand, that's danger, that they've smelled some things there. Mm-hmm. So this goes back to what we talked about, or what you were talking about probably 45 minutes ago to an hour ago in this show. Are you looking to be hunting in areas where you see deer, or do you want to see the right deer?
Right.
You know,
So, so
and either way is fine, right?
right.
It's just what is it that you're looking to accomplish out in the woods?
So you're going to get young deer when, what do they know? They know that they want food. They know that they want this, they
Hmm.
want that. And they're going to come into food sources. They're going to try to be careful coming out. They're going to come in. And you can get into a spot where you can see lots of young bucks, right? But that mature buck's going to learn over time that he ends up in danger every time he does this,
Yeah.
or a high majority of the time. And he's going to start to adjust. You know what I mean? And then that's where I'm hunting spots where I see a lot less deer. So if somebody's hunting the spot where they're seeing all these deer, they might see the occasional good buck. They might get lucky. But I'm going to hunt in a spot where I don't see nearly as many deer, but I see a lot more big bucks. You know,
Right.
for me, I don't need that pacifier. So many people need to see deer. They're like, I haven't seen nothing in 3 days. I mean, like sometimes I go a week of hunting every day, every
Right.
morning and evening without seeing a deer. Doesn't phase me because I'm not hunting deer. It's like I didn't, somebody says to me, I didn't see deer today. I didn't see squirrels. So what?
Right.
Am I hunting squirrels? No, I'm not hunting deer. I'm hunting a certain buck. So
Yeah.
not seeing them doesn't deter me. I just got to keep hopping around. For me, it's a game. It's like a chess game. Okay,
Hmm.
I'll move here. Oh, nothing. I'll move here. Nothing. I'll move here. Nothing. And then you get 10 hunts in and you haven't seen a thing. And one guy is like, oh my God, I've hunted 10 days. I haven't seen nothing. This is horrible. And I'm like, whew, I've hunted 10 days without seeing this deer or seeing any sign of him. That means he can only be in these other spots.
Hmm.
I'm limiting it. Now my odds are even higher now.
Right.
It's all mindset. It's all glass half full crap.
Eric and Zach Outdoors put food on the table. Yeah, absolutely. If that's what you want, that's great. And you'll never hear us disparage that in any way, shape, or form. I think that's fantastic. Find the ways and the reasons why you want to hunt and want to be out there and enjoy it for what it is. Everybody has different goals, and somebody that's only looking to shoot booners, their goals aren't any different than yours, or they are different, but it doesn't make it any more important than the reason why you're out there.
There's a side thing to that though, too. Now, obviously, like you said, I could give a crap what somebody wants to shoot. If you want to
Right.
shoot some more deer, go ahead. By all means. I kind of missed that from my childhood. It's kind of like I
Hmm.
showed in the last video I did, right? But there's also the fact that um, do you desire shooting a big buck
Right.
at all? I mean,
What
do
is the
you?
reason for your hunt?
So I get plenty of opportunities to shoot deer. You know what I'm saying? And if you're going to get a deer anyways, I mean, I would have no problem shooting and filling my tags, hunting the way I
Hmm.
hunt. I mean, you might hunt them a little, you might fill them a little faster, sitting over a food plot, sitting over a corn pile, sitting, funnel. But why not, hunt for mature bucks? And if something smaller comes by that you want to shoot, you shoot it because you're always growing and learning. And I don't get that mentality that, that what I'm doing is wrong. It's not wrong, for any hunter
Hmm.
to try to achieve the best, but settle for what you're happy with.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. You don't right. It's like running a marathon and saying I really want to come in sixth, so I'm going to slow down if I'm coming in second.
Yeah.
It
Right.
doesn't even make sense to me. I'm
Strive for first, but be okay with what you end up with.
right. If you really think I'm wrong on that, if a 10-pointer and a spike come out, shoot the spike. If that's all you're in for food, right? If I'm wrong, that you'd rather just have meat and it's only about meat, shoot the spike. He's easier to drag.
No, I mean, I think all meat hunters, right? I think all meat hunters still want to shoot a big buck.
Yeah, I think
But I
there's a
think
little bit
they're
of
I think they're okay
right.
if they settle, and I think even in their own mind they're settling. You're not. Like, it's just what you want to do. what you're okay with at the end of the day, and be okay with that. Be happy with whatever you end up with, and but don't ever. I guess what I don't like is when somebody makes excuses.
So it's not
Well,
an
it
excuse.
wasn't the biggest. I needed meat. I needed meat. I needed meat in the freezer, whatever. So I did this. Like, just whatever you do, just be happy with it, one way or the other.
Well, what I don't like is kind of um, condescending, like I'm a bad person because I hold out for big bucks, or that person's a bad person because he's shooting ones before they grow up.
Yeah.
I don't like either of those scenarios.
Right.
I just hunt for me, and I say that quite often. That this is what I do, and I'm not teaching people how to shoot little bucks. I'm not teaching them how to shoot does. I'm teaching what I know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not telling them to shoot big. I'm not telling them to shoot little. I'm teaching what I
That's
know.
the only way, right?
The whole condescending thing that like I'm doing something wrong because I'm holding out for big bucks. If you don't like what I'm doing, go tune into somebody that shoots little ones.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'm just portraying me. That's the same thing as like me and you, Scott. We conflict a lot of ways in the ways we hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say you're hunting wrong, and you don't say I'm hunting wrong. We both got the things that we like about hunting, the things that drive our souls.
Right.
So does the guy that hunts meat. A prime example of that is Lou, Uncle Lou from
Yeah.
Stealth Outdoors. I love that guy. I love
Me
the
too.
childish kind of way he is. Like he goes back to my childhood of how giddy he gets about just shooting a deer. He doesn't care if
Just
it's a
shooting deer.
buck, a spike, a forkhorn. But at the same point, he'd love to get a giant rack,
Right.
but he's shooting deer. And I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And
Mm-hmm.
people got to get past this always arguing to make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
I think most of the time when a person says, you shoot a little 2-year-old, it's because that makes them feel like they're a bigger man, or they say, you should just shoot meat, you're a trophy hunter, that's bad. Well, that's like saying he's better. It's
Yeah.
a way of justifying yourself as a person, and really we're all in this together.
I
We
mean,
should all be holding hands and singing Kumbaya. Want to hold my hand, Scott?
well, here's a little cheers to Uncle Lou right there, Stealth Outdoors.
He shot a nice 2-year-old 8-pointer. He was really
Yeah.
excited. He pictures.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. There's a really good chance I might shoot a 2.5-year-old buck during gun season. I don't know why my standards change.
Mine do too.
This is just weird. But like,
They don't change dramatically, but I mean, I'm happy with a nice buck on gun season. You got such a short window. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got such a short window, and it's exciting, and it's a little harder.
Want to hear a funny story? I went to my chiropractor today. I see him like every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he always is asking me how hunting's going and that, and I tell him. And I've been seeing him for over 10 years. And he goes, "Actually, are you gonna shoot anything this gun season?" And I kind of chuckle. I was like, "Yeah, you're right." He's like, "You don't ever shoot anything during gun season the last couple of years." I'm like, "Yeah, you are 100% correct. I have not." And I've had plenty of opportunities at some decent bucks and plenty of does. Well, this year I have multiple families, people I know that don't hunt. They don't have anybody in their family that hunt. They didn't grow up that way, but they like venison, and I always share venison with them. And a lot of them are like, if you have any extra venison this year, I'd like to buy some. I'm like, no, I won't do that. Like I'll give you venison. Well, if you shoot an extra deer and you feel like you have too much meat, would you like me to shoot you a deer? Yeah, we would love to have a deer. Multiple families, right?
They ought to talk to your
I'm like,
chiropractor.
this year, this is the year, right? I'm like, you know what? This might be the year. I'm taking the trailer up. I might be jinxing myself, but I'm like, we're gonna stack them up like cordwood because between that and the landowner talking about how many does he's got out in the field constantly throughout the winter. But honestly, I don't think I've killed a deer during gun season now in 3 years. And it's not because I haven't had opportunities. It's just I've been holding off or I don't like to shoot does as much as I used to. But then the whole season gets over with, and I'm like, man, I would have really had a lot of fun shooting some does.
Yeah.
And I used to love shooting does. Like it was a lot of, I enjoyed just hunting and killing deer. So this year, I'm going guns a blazing. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to end up happening, but that's the goal, anyways. I'm taking a separate trailer up because I don't have enough room in the back of my truck with all the other gear I have to take up to deer camp. And hopefully, between my brother and I, we'll stack them up like cordwood in that thing. And we'll feed a whole bunch of families, a whole bunch of our friends and family members this year. So,
Freaking awesome.
let's see. What else we got here? Steve, I think this kind of goes along with that. We can do both in the same boat. Absolutely. You can hunt anywhere you want, but just enjoy doing it. All right, Dan. We are just over the 2 hour mark here for tonight. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up and pack our gear?
So you want an update on the truck?
Oh, yes, the truck.
Yeah. So
The Yoda. Let's hear about it.
yeah, I've had it around a little bit, and nobody can fix it. So
Still not fixed.
today, or I did some self-diagnosing. I shouldn't say self. I work with a guy, not right with him, but he works in the department right next to me, so we're right side by side. His desk is next to mine, and his name's Chuck. And Chuck was a Toyota technician for 30 some years. He's an older guy, and he came to us because Toyota stopped paying well. He said they pay their techs like 20 some bucks an hour, and he says they make hardly anything, and they only get paid for what they're working on. So like if they're fixing an intake manifold, it might be quoted for an hour and a half. They get paid an hour and a half. They don't get paid if they're not working on something. So this is pays 1.5 hours, right? So if they get 20 bucks an hour, they get $30 for doing that. If they broke a bolt off, that's on them. You got to get, so it's an older truck. Maybe you break 2 bolts. You got to take those bolts off on your time. You don't get paid for that and fix that. So he was telling me how disgruntled they are, and that's why they got bad guys there or whatever. But he worked there for years. He was a really good tech until they started going south. And he left and came to us where we pay more. So me and him were trying to diagnose my truck without my truck there. And he started looking things up and doing, we got to have something to do at work. So we're doing research. And he found that, now I can't think of the acronym for it, but there's a housing that goes on the back of your intake manifold that has this little plastic flipper on it that flips back and forth and does something with the airflow. It wasn't on all trucks, but this particular model of Toyota has it. And he found that these were breaking, and when they break, the flipper would fall and cover a hole and stop oxygen from getting into one of the pistons and cause it to misfire. And because there's no vacuum leak, there's no nothing else, it wouldn't cause anything. So we were going to fix that. So the garage had called me up and said they couldn't figure out what it was. They said they gave up. You're going to have to take it to a Toyota dealer, a different one that works better. Then they said, don't take it to Wild Toyota. They're worse than, in Brookfield, they're worse than Des Moines, what this place tells me. Take it to Madison. I'm like, geez, are any of these guys competent? The Toyota dealers? The guy I was dealing with is pretty competent. But I called him back and I said, hey, this is what we found. So he took a couple bolts out and he found ground up plastic in there. But he couldn't see the flipper. So he's pretty sure the flipper was gone. He said, I think you're right. So we went and got the this thing, and they won't sell it to you at a parts store. Toyota makes you buy all this stuff from Toyota. So they won't sell you the plastic flipper. You have to buy the whole housing. $900. So buy the housing. And today he ripped the housing off, and he had to take the intake manifold off to take it off. And I said, while you're in there, do all the coil packs, all the spark plugs. And he pulls the thing off, and he says the flipper ain't broke.
Jeez.
Mangled plastic from it in there. I'm like, oh man. So, anywho, while he's working on this thing, I said, change it anyways, and let's just try it. So I'm driving past there today, so I stop in to see how he's doing. And he goes, oh, I got some updates for you. He goes, I want to show you something. So we go over to the truck, and he's got the, he goes, you had to, you kept getting that misfire on cylinder number 5, right? I says, yeah. He goes, same one I was getting, right? I says, yeah. He goes, which cylinder did you change the spark plug on? I said, number 5. He goes, which one? So I point at it. He goes, that is cylinder number 5. That's the only one you changed, right? I said, yes, the only one you could access. All the other ones are covered by the intake manifold. He goes, well, look at this. He points over at cylinder 3, and there's a sticker on it that says cylinder 5. And he goes, that one's got a brand new spark plug in it from Toyota. I go, he literally put the spark plug for number 5, the Toyota guy, the Eon guy.
Yeah.
He put the number 5 spark plug. Not that it's a different spark plug, but he got the code for cylinder 5 and put it in number 3. Change the spark plug in number 3. So also the coil pack he pulled out to put the spark plug in was all burnt up and covered in oil. And he put it back in like that. But it was a brand new spark plug in there, and it had a sticker on it that was number 5. So he just designated it as number 5 now. So anyways, he goes, it gets better than that. He goes over and he shows me, he took out the spark plug out of cylinder 6. And he says it was in there loose. He took it out. He never even put the wrench on it. He just turned the socket.
Just by hand, yeah.
Right out by hand. And it was broken in half. And the end of this, the little bar that comes around the electrode thing.
Yep.
And the spark plug was melted completely off. I'm like, how is that even firing? How is that one not even?
Right. That one should have coded.
Right. So at that point, we put all new spark plugs in, all new packs, put that housing on, and put it back together. And he drove it 20 miles today and didn't have any problems. So I'm hoping it's okay. We'll see. He did say that when he took the thing with the plastic flipper and he shook it in the air, it made a clicking noise, and the new one didn't. So he's thinking that the thing is kind of making the noise that I was getting because it was coming from that housing area. But it's taken me, now it's been over 2 weeks. And yesterday I got an email from Toyota after they ghosted me for 2 weeks. And it says, we understand you were having a noise in your engine that Eon couldn't fix. Were you ever able to resolve that? And did you ever find a Toyota dealer to work on it? I'm like, I asked you for a recommendation. You ghosted me. You know, I asked you if there's anybody that can fix this. You sent me home. You made me ship my vehicle home. And now you're asking me if I had a Toyota dealer work on it? Why'd you make me take it home then?
Right.
I don't know. Those people
From a Toyota dealership, yeah.
So I got my fingers crossed that I will have a gun for, a truck for gun season, you know. But if not...
or a gun for truck season.
Otherwise, I'm going to be following the whole crew on a bicycle. And by the way, the ignition broke on the convertible.
Oh no!
Yeah,
the chick car.
Yeah, you can't start it. The ignition broke. So
just jam a screwdriver in there.
Hopefully the truck's working. We'll find out tomorrow.
Wow. When it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
Although I think there's a lot of folks out there that would appreciate seeing the chick car out there for the deer drive videos. Top down, late November. Just throw a couple deer on the back of the trunk. That would be awesome.
I'm gonna get a bicycle sponsor.
Yes, e-bikes. Let's do it. Oh, I can't wait. This is such a great time of year, folks. I hope you guys are enjoying your seasons. Hope everybody's having a good season, and we got some time left. If you haven't gotten your buck yet, there's still a lot of season, not just in Wisconsin, but in all the states around us. So keep after it and
Yeah,
keep
if you're
it
getting out
posted.
there, good luck.
Yeah, absolutely. And good luck to you, Dan. We'll talk soon. We're kind of on the fence about next week because we're about a show. We're kind of planning on it, but it's also hunting season as well, and anything can happen at any time. So I would, if I were you guys, I would plan to check back in with us next Tuesday. But should Dan and I have success that evening or something, we might not be able to do a show. But for now, plan on it. We'll be back again next week and update you on what's new. We'll give you the beast report, right?
Thanks, everybody.
All right. We'll see you guys soon. Be safe out there and good luck, everybody. Until next time.